Welcome to the alchemy of sexual healing. You may be here because you are starting out on some sort of journey, you have some questions, you're not really sure about, let's say, what is bothering you from your childhood. It could be a simple thing, and it's just, you're taking a voyage. You're setting out to upright whatever has fallen down, what feels really incongruent in your life. That's how it started out for me. So I had this feeling of incongruency, and it was just, in the mornings when I would wake up or when I would be out on a walk, it would start coming out. It got really annoying, and it heated up over the years. It did not go away. The questions got louder and louder. What happened to me? I know something really that feels really dark and secret and awful. Now that sounds obvious now, but this was in the 80s and it was not obvious, and no one was really talking about this. In fact, there was a movement when people did start talking about it to push against it. The False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which just disbanded in like 2009. They were around for a really long time. So there's been a lot of opposition, and Freud, had been talking to his clients, and they had been saying this and this and this happened to me, and it was this person, and they were talking about incest basically and child sexual abuse within the family. And Freud was really passionate at first about having come up with why he thought a lot of women were considered hysterical. That was the big diagnosis way back before the DSM, that big psychology book about what we all are, like where do we fit in these neuroses and conditions of being human. And they just had it under one big lump, hysteria. And so Freud was really onto something, but he got a lot of pressure on the outside to not say that, like he was finding all of these people in the household were committing sexual abuse against children. So he radically changed his opinion and decided that it was the child fantasizing about being with the adult, and that was causing all these problems. So, however you feel about that, it's very political in the academic world that I've been steeped in the last 10 years. And needless to say, in the discipline of psychology in particular, it still really affects it. In fact, that's why I went and got my master's and have been working on my PhD for 7 years to help write some of the ways that people are being educated about incest and child sexual abuse, because it's still, I've heard some of them talking about what they're learning in classes, because in school I was the assistant to the head of the psychology department, so I heard a lot of it. And I was stunned by how they were being educated. It was like, Freud was still standing there in the room. So I think with the Me Too movement and the way things are now, and people are speaking up about what's happening to them as adults, that we are starting to move forward in not blaming people and not creating more trauma. But for me, the alchemy of sexual healing is about everybody healing. Now, my parents aren't on the planet any longer, but I wish they were, and I wish above all that we could have had conversations and that we could have talked about the dynamic in my household. I'm going to talk about my story a little bit more, but first I just want you to know that we're going to be looking at all of the sexual traumas along the continuum as story, because that's how our brains will handle it and be able to process it. I've gone through a lot of memory retrieval and soul retrieval and that sort of thing based on my years and years of alchemical and shamanic and tantric Buddhist study. And I'll share with you how that is part of what helped me clarify and get to the place of healing that I have now, that has exponentially increased my creativity and my libidinal energies and made my life a lot healthier and happier, because I know it happened to me. Somewhat. I mean, it's never 100%, but we'll talk about that too. So I'm so glad you're here, and start looking through all the material and choose what's right for you next.